So today I want to talk about filial piety and attendance. And this is a topic that attendance is very much a unificationist term, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. But also filial piety is not really something that we talk about in the West very much. I've had many conversations with people where I mention, oh yeah, filial piety, and they're like, huh? What's that? So a lot of people have never heard the concept of filial piety. They don't know what it means. In the East, it's strange if you've never heard of it if you don't know what it is. But it's different culture. America is much more individualistic, and East is much more family and lineage and honor and clans and society. These things are very, very important. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about filial piety first. One of the things that we learn about in the church is that our relationship with God is a relationship between parent and child. And so everything in our life, our relationship with God, is related to our family relationship, our family dynamic. They're not separate things. The core of our faith is a parent-child relationship, but we go through stages of figuring out what that is, just like we do as growing up as children. All of us have had the experience either of raising children or of being children ourselves. And so when I think about my own experience, hey Mark, can you check the other mics? When I think about my experience growing up, also in my experience raising kids, who oldest are now 15, there's a lot that comes up for me. And just a recognition that, we go through stages of experience in life. We go through stages of maturity. When we're very young, the world is it's like the world is our oyster, right? I don't even know what that means. It's a saying, the world is your oyster. I have to figure out, what was the person who came up with that thinking? They really loved oysters? I don't know. But the world is like your playground, and the possibilities are infinite. And your parents are like these amazing people. They're like your God. They're perfect. They're my role model, Like I want to be like mom. I want to be like dad. And generally speaking, not always the case, but we follow, right? If our parents say to do this, you do that. You don't really question so much. So that's like when we're very young. As we grow older, then we start to recognize, oh, my parents aren't perfect. They have flaws, they make mistakes. Oh, that thing that my mom or dad did really bothered me, or it affected me very negatively, like my ability to have friends, or, we realize that the things that they do affect us, and we may not always be happy about it, and we may not be that open to the conversations and the relationship of the dynamic, and it's easy to compare. Oh, I wish I had this kind of parent, or I wish I had that kind of parent. And we realize that the world is not my oyster, necessarily. It may not be a safe, great place that I thought it was. There may be danger. There may be, people to avoid. And perspective really changes. Many people, I feel like, we grow up physically. We get jobs. We have families. We, have experiences in life, and we get older. But many, many times people get actually stuck in this stage of life, spiritually speaking, and maturity-wise. But there's another stage that, we all hope to achieve or strive for in our life. and that is maturity, so to speak, where we get to a point where we recognize, oh, everybody has problems. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. I have shortcomings. It's not fair to expect that other people are perfect or to judge people for being, less than they are. And instead of dwelling on those maybe negative things and being frustrated and being angry about it, I can find fulfillment and pride in being a good son or a daughter, uplifting and, especially in the parent-child relationship, right? Honoring my parents, uplifting them, caring for them, regardless of their mistakes or maybe criticisms I may have, and even if there is a cost to myself for doing so. So this is the realm of maturity where filial piety comes in. And Google, for lack of a better source at this point, defines it as a concept primarily within Confucianism that emphasizes the importance of showing deep respect, obedience, and care towards one's parents and elders, essentially meaning a child's duty to honor and serve their parents throughout their lives. It is considered a core virtue in many East Asian cultures, particularly in China, where it is deeply ingrained in societal values. So, right? Not really a concept that we know about or practice that much here in the West. But in the East, it's very common, even such that they will offer, they do, even now, still they do awards. They ask people to submit stories of people who exemplify filial piety. People who have gone above and beyond. And, if you read, there's a lot of stories, especially from ancient China and different countries that share about this concept of filial piety. And you would think, oh, well, maybe families were better back then, or, it's easy to be filial if you have good parents or something like that. But, and that's not, it's not that that's not true, but the stories that really stand out are the stories of people, they like to use the word wicked a lot in these stories. So so-and-so had a wicked mother or a wicked father or a wicked step. This is like some Disney Cinderella movie kind of thing. They have this wicked person. But even despite that, their son or their daughter, worked to support the family, gave up their schooling or gave up their whatever ambition they had and just focused solely on uplifting the parents. There's these kind of amazing stories like that. And it's still very highly uplifted virtue in the East. And so I remember maybe 15 years ago or so, I was really interested in filial piety, and I was reading a lot of these old stories of filial piety in the East. It's very fascinating, and I think that's something that we lack so much here in the Western culture that I think that if we could bring a little bit of here to our culture, it would be really great. But filial piety, just like the word filial means, it's like your family, right? It's generally speaking, it's like your relationship with your parents, or in many cases, like your ancestors. You honor your ancestors. If you think about the movie Mulan, and it's all about bringing honor to your family, right? And so there's many people that would rather die than dishonor their family, rather die than dishonor their parents. But the filial piety is very much focused on the family. And attendance is a little bit different. Attendance is a kind of a concept, a term that it comes from a Korean word, moshim. And there's not really a definition of it. I think it's a term that our church invented. But one person defined it as a means having a powerful longing and yearning in heart for the beloved. It means a longing to lift the beloved up, to see the beloved happy, fulfilled, and peaceful. So this encompasses a little bit more, something deeper than just a filial piety. I think filial piety is a very good foundation. But then when you bring in that concept of attendance, then it's in a sense having an attitude of filial piety to our Heavenly Parent, which you think is, we connect the dots, but actually in reality, most of the world sees a relationship with God not like that. We see a God who needs to be worshiped or followed or feared. And our true parents have taught us that, no, our relationship with God ideally is more of a relationship between you and your parent, like the filial piety that you would express to a parent, but it's an expression of our love to God. It's an expression of our gratitude, longing to lift up even God, to understand what is God's needs, and to strive in our life to fulfill them. But the reality is that many times our personal relationship with God is, as much as we may strive for that, or we may wish to have a relationship with God like that, is not like that. If we look back on the stages of growth and think, oh, where am I at in my relationship with God on those stages of growth? Am I like a small child who's just, excited about God and will follow anything, but also maybe necessarily more like receiving, just happy to receive. Everything is good. And then there's maybe more of a teenager type perspective on God where, we talk to God if we want something, if we need something. We talk to God, what was it? If we get what we want from God, then we're happy. But if we don't get what we want, then we might get upset or frustrated, resentful. Or maybe we can get frustrated if God is doing something in our lives, but it involves some sacrifice, something I don't like, some discomfort. Those two relationships, the main focus of the relationship is myself. What do I get from God? How does the things that God is doing affect me personally? But the last one, in the realm of filial piety, focuses on the other, even if there's some cost to me. Ultimately, our relationship with Heavenly Parent is very personal, but it never manifests over time as just being between me and God. And this is one of the main points that I want to make today. Because normally we think of our relationship with God as being a very personal thing, and it is a very personal thing. Let me see here. How about this? This is something our founder, Reverend Moon, he said, you should lead a life of attendance. When you wake up in the morning, you should say your first word to heaven. And when you go out of your house, you should move your right leg first in order to attend heaven. If you live like this in your everyday life, you can lead a life of attendance. So, I don't think that Father here is saying that literally every time you get up or you leave your house, you have to but it's just a mindfulness thing. It's even if you're just standing up out of bed or leaving your house, but you're thinking, oh, I'm leading with my right foot. It's a symbolism, it's a reminder for us that, my life is in attendance to God. I don't want to forget about God, even in the mundane, simple things. It's why we pray before we eat. It's like a reminder, this food, this thing that I survive off of, that I couldn't live without. It's a gift from God. I don't want to forget God in the simple act of eating. And if you listen to him, and he'll talk on and on about all the different things that you can do, to put God first in your life and to attend God. And that's a very personal thing, right? Like, you don't need to be like doing that as a group, like, hey, let's all do this together, or like, people don't need to be seeing you doing that. It's just a personal thing. It's just between you and God. And then this is from Deuteronomy. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. So in a sense here too, it's saying like, don't just make your relationship with God the thing you do at church or the thing you do when life isn't going the way you wish it to be going. It's not about like rituals and a building. It's about every moment of our lives. So, speaking of church, for me personally, there have been many times in my life where I've just felt like I would like to just be me or my family and our attendance and our relationship with God, and that would be very simple. And that would be very relatively, less stressful in some ways than being a part of a church and a part of a community and kind of being a part of an institution. I find it to actually be very difficult. I've had a lot of hard time to actually have a desire to continue to be a part of like a church institution, which is ironic, I get it, but that's kind of what it is. But I've really struggled. I don't like being affected by change, the change that other people have decided. I struggle with believing that leaders always have God's best interests and our best interests at mind. I know that sometimes ego gets in the way, sometimes money gets in the way. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that sadly we have had to witness as a reality in the world of religion. And also just a feeling of not being in control. And Adonia can testify that there's been times where I've had to seek out counseling because of this particular point. I don't like being told what to do. I have in my life, because my mom is Japanese and my dad is American and I grew up in America, I have an interesting perspective, I think in some ways, because I very much understand Eastern culture. It's in my blood. I like conformity. I like cleanliness. I like general peace that you find especially in Japan. I can't speak so much for other countries. And I kind of like the idea of like everyone just having their place and fitting in, you know? But then there's the Western side of me that I love Western creativity and independence and not being afraid to like go do something controversial, you know, do something different, break a few rules here and there, you know. I like that too. So that puts me in a difficult spot because I want to be a conformist in a way, but I don't want to conform at the expense of progress. And sometimes it just seems like there's never sometimes it just feels like there's not a win-win in every one of those situations where you're caught between the two. So these days, there's been a lot of like changes in the movement, and Mother has asked us to pray a different way, and to be called the Holy Mother Han. And I know that Our whole community is pretty much encompasses the whole spectrum of how people feel about that, amongst other things. It's not just those two things, there's many things. Some people are indifferent, doesn't matter so much. Some people are totally on board. Some people are sorry, I didn't hear that. Totally something. Totally opposed. Some people are hesitant, just reluctant, somewhere in the middle. Everything. There's a little bit of everything all over the place. And we're a little bit caught up in the middle of all that, which is very interesting. Another one of those kind of situations are like, wow, life could be a lot simpler without all of this. But I will say at the end of the day, I'm not going to be standing up here to give anyone any answers or any solid oh, you should do this, you should do that. I'm not about that really at the end of the day. But for me, personally, what it comes down to is, and basically the reason I'm talking about this today, is attendance. I feel my life I would not have the life that I have without God. And I would not have the life that I have without being a part of this movement. Pros, cons, pluses, minuses, good things, bad things, it's all part of the same package. We can't oh, I wish it was all the good stuff and not have any of the bad stuff. I mean, that'd be nice. I mean, I can't say I wouldn't wish it would be that way, but it is the way it is, I was taking some pictures of the new wall over here the other day, 2 days ago, and this guy comes walking around the corner, and he's like, oh, dude, are you part of the construction crew, or are you just checking it out? And I'm like, well, I'm just checking it out. Those were the two options he gave me. And he's like, dude, have you heard of this place? It's the World Unification Church. They're a part of it. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. And then he's like, dude, and this guy was so sketchy. Sorry. He was a really sketchy guy. He's like, you should look up Unification Church war crimes. And then he puts on his hoodie and he walks away. I'm like, you are so weird. Whatever he said, I would have been like, I don't want to listen to you kind of thing. But, I was just curious. I was like, war crimes? I mean, really? Come on. So, it's all this stuff about Japan. I mean, what is this? Because some guy who was kind of associated with the church, and he was angry that his mom gave a bunch of money to the church, so he decided to assassinate the ex-prime minister, and that gets blamed on us somehow? I tell you, it's the internet and these internet warriors. But it's the whole package, guys. It's the whole package. I would love for that to not be a part of us, because it shouldn't be, but it is, at least according to people who are just looking up Unification Church on the internet. Nothing I can do about it. It's the package. But it doesn't define who we are. At least it shouldn't to us. Because of my life, and because of my deeply held belief that I wouldn't have the life I have without God, I wouldn't have the life I have without the movement, I want to attend Heavenly Parent in my life. And I see true parents not just as the founders of our church, not just as returning Christ, but as people who have spent their whole life attending God, more than I could see of anybody else. I mean, there's many people in history and in the world who have tried their best to attend God, right? Many people who have sacrificed, have been martyred for their faith. But when I see true parents and I look at their life and I see a little bit of what it takes to be a leader on a very small level here in our little community, and to see all the things that they have done and the sacrifices that they have made to attend God, I can't say anything. Both father and mother. And so for me, that although I see the things happening in the world and in our movement, and some things I'm like, make me question and make me struggle. But I always come back to attendance. I guess for me, that's the most important thing. I recognize that may not be meaningful for some of you, but it is for me to attend our Heavenly Parent and to attend our true parents, because I can't see the value of attendance or the value of filial piety in a situation where you just stop doing it because you just have disagreements. Like in those stories of filial piety, when there's a child or somebody who is really attending their parent, there's no story that's like, well, and then my parent went crazy and they did something really stupid, or like I disagreed with something that they did and then I just stopped caring about them. That's not the way that filial piety works. And so it's not the way that attendance works either. But beyond just a personal relationship with God, what I've come to discover to be true is that even if we're like, oh, I just want to do my own thing, true attendance to God always envelops more than just you yourself. Because God is always going to use your faith and your desire to do something for Him to touch other people's lives. It's always going to happen. God's not going to be like, oh, you attend me, you love me, you're so filial to me, and you just live your quiet little life by yourself. Good for you. I don't think God's going to do that, because God, as much as God may care for me, God cares for others. God cares for all His children out there, and if we, and kind of putting ourselves in the position of Abel, remember we talked about Cain and Abel a few weeks ago, put ourselves in the position of Abel, I want to do something for you, God, use me, God, then God is going to use you to reach Cain. So, here's some other quotes. What is attendance all about? What is this mystery called life all about? It is before us, and yet it is hidden as if it were an unattainable secret. Life is about attending God as a son and as a daughter. It is about attending God as a family, as a tribe, as a society. It is about attending God as a nation, as a world, and as a cosmos. It is about the magnificence, the splendor, and the glory of life and relationship with God. This is the primary purpose of our life. So, just like in many things, right, it's what the heck? It starts individually, but it's designed to grow. We don't just attend God as a person forever. Eventually it has to grow. It grows to attend God as a family, as a tribe, as a society, and to eventually grow to encompass a whole family of God, family of humanity, attending God in one heart. Where am I? Oh, yeah. Next one. You should seek God's heart before you seek the kingdom of heaven. You should think how you should live before you seek God's heart. Before anything else, you should have the heart of attendance. It is the original nature of human beings to feel longing and bow their heads when they meet a noble being. Even though you are fallen, it is your original heart to attend the noble heart of heaven. What the heck? You should know clearly that you have no connection with the kingdom of heaven if you have not experienced a life of attendance with your heart. So I think that what Father is saying here is that the core of seeking the kingdom of heaven is about living a life of attendance. It's not necessarily just about understanding all the right things, being right all the time, or doing all the right things, fulfilling all the check boxes and doing all the rituals. But if we have not experienced a heart of living in attendance with God, then we don't know anything about what the kingdom of heaven is supposed to feel like, I think is what he's saying here. So at the end of the day, I think it's important to recognize that what God's hope for is for us. We always say, right? God never meant to create religion. We wouldn't have needed religion. So someday we will not need the Unification Church. But I think we'll always need a heart of attendance to God. But it's also important for us to recognize where we're at. You know, I can't stand up here and be like, we should all become more mature, you know, like we should have more of a heart of attendance. Well, yeah, but like we can't just like force ourselves to. We can't just like make ourselves. But I think that like a lot of things when it comes to growth, it's important for us to recognize where we're at right now. What kind of relationship do I have with God right now? And it's not even just like, well, it's got to be one of those three. Which one are you? You know, it's like we might have varying levels of maturity in different aspects of our relationship with God, in different aspects of our relationship with maybe our own parents or with the people around us. But to recognize that we are striving to be in a heart of attendance with our Heavenly Parent, regardless of where we're at. We recognize where we're at, and then we're like, okay, well, maybe that's a teenager mentality, or maybe that's more of a child's mentality. And then to work on it from there. And so I want to finish up with couple more quotes. Human beings have a sense of somehow quite clearly being aware of God, and yet are searching for a deeper awareness and experience in the Heavenly Parent and child relationship. Due to the fall, we have become like existential orphans, often living a life centered on ourselves, a life of misery and silent tears. We have lost sight of living a true life of attending God, rejoicing in our relationship, and being intoxicated in His love and blessings. Now we can begin a true life of attending God. We need to attend God with all our heart and place Him in the position of owner of true love. Instead, human beings have made Him the owner of a broken heart. In this course of restoration, we need to attend God with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience in order to restore the oneness of God and His children, and to restore our lineages and establish a realm of liberation and complete freedom. In attending God, filial sons and daughters cultivate a character of true love and realize the parent and child relationship. We need to become filial sons and daughters who can transcend the limitations and entrapment of the mindset centered on the values of a fallen society, and soar with God in faith and in substance to fulfill the ideal for which He created, the purpose of our lives. These are beyond the mundane scope that society in our postmodern age and all past ages instills in human beings. We must become filial sons and daughters who gain a sensibility to the heart of God, as if to feel the vibrations from His heart and our hearts. Please join me in prayer. Dearest Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for this day. I'm grateful for everybody who's here, Heavenly Parent, and Heavenly Parent, we know that we have fallen really short in many ways, and we, as much as we have tried to really be good children, good sons and daughters to you, we have oftentimes fallen into blaming you and resenting you and cursing our circumstances, Heavenly Parent. And we know that you are simply trying to build your ideal world, Heavenly Parent. You are trying to turn this world of pain and suffering and hurt into your paradise. And Heavenly Parent, you have not given up. And your will is absolute. It will happen, Heavenly Parent, but many times for us, it's hard to see how we're going to get from where we're at now to that point, Heavenly Parent. And it's very easy to just get caught up in our own personal challenges, Heavenly Parent. And I just pray, Heavenly Parent, that as a community, as individuals, as families, that we can somehow rise above our circumstances, Heavenly Parent, that we can attend you, that we can strive to be the children that you can use and work through and be inspired by to make change happen in one another's lives and in society, Heavenly Parent, that as little by little, however it takes or however long it takes, Heavenly Parent, that we can gradually build a world starting from our own families and communities that can truly attend you and can truly understand the hopes and the desires of your heart and the pain in your heart that you have experienced, Heavenly Parent. And through our true parents, I really believe that we can accomplish that, and just want to give so much gratitude to them, Heavenly Parent, and to Jesus, whose foundation that they came upon. I thank you, and I offer this prayer on behalf of our blessed family and all blessed families here. Amen and Aju. Thank you.